Thanks very much, Jeffrey. Thanks everybody for coming this evening. The purpose really of tonight's meeting is to review what happened on Tuesday when the budget for next year for the city was decided by the councillors in the council chamber. Then to set it into a little bit of a context as to how these cuts have come about, and in a broad sense what needs to be built in order to try and change the direction that things are going. We had about a 5-hour meeting on Tuesday in the council, and a £17 million package of cuts was passed through. This is added on to the £6.5 million that was done in the early autumn of 2010, the £38 million that was done this time last year, and in the report which was passed on Tuesday there is a prediction of some 14 million next year and 27 million the year after, which means that by the end of this Parliament in 2015, well over £100 million a year, which otherwise would have been coming into the council to provide jobs and services, and given the nature of the people who work at the council, largely spent locally in shops and in the local economy, no longer will be coming into Coventry. That's probably the biggest hole punched into the city's economy for possibly generations. Even before that fully is carried out, in a sense we're only 1.5 years into it, because we decided that budget, but that's the budget for the next 12 months, there's 2 more full years after that. Even before that happens, we had government figures out only 10 days ago that said now almost a quarter of the households in the city suffer from fuel poverty. In other words, they have to find more than 10% of their disposable income to pay their fuel bills. And that's at a time when one of the biggest energy companies, Centrica, announced their profits today. Centrica is the holding company for British Gas, announced their profits today of £2.5 billion. We're in a city where unemployment is rising, and amongst young people under the age of 24, it's now over 20%, 1 in 5 of every younger person. So the 400 or 500 jobs that were in that report on Tuesday extra that are to go from the council is going to make that even worse. Trouble is, I can't tell you where those jobs are going to go. Neither could any of the councillors who are voting in favour of that £17 million cut on Tuesday. Because in the report, unlike budget reports of years gone by, there is no detail whatsoever of where the cuts are going to be. There is an overall package of 17 million. What happened last year, when we had the 38 million, again there was no detail. It wasn't until December, and it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't pushed for it, it's literally, none of the other 53 seem interested. It wasn't until December I managed to get a list of every single job which had got in the authority because of last year's budget cuts. And in a sense, what prompted me to ask that was one case I was doing for a chap who himself used to work for the council. He used to be one of the neighbourhood wardens for the council, but because of illness now he's wheelchair bound, and he lives on to the side of Stony Stanton Road. And on the corner of Stony Stanton Road and Harlow Lane, there's a shop that's been turned into a takeaway, and it's had a new shop front put on it, and there's a lip of about 3 inches to get into the shop. So Bill in his wheelchair can't get in. I fancy the idea of a takeaway only a few hundred yards from his flat. So he can't get in there. So I phoned up the council and said, can we send somebody out to check under the various disability legislation that is accessible to an ex-council worker who lives around the corner in a wheelchair who wants to use the shop? I'm sorry, councillor, we no longer have anybody working for the authority who does that job. That was one of the jobs that went in last year's package of early retirement and voluntary redundancy. So I thought, well, I'll find out what else. And here's a list of 400 or 500 jobs that have gone. So this Tuesday, councillors were voting on an overall package, but unlike previous years, they weren't prepared to admit to themselves or explain to the people of Coventry exactly what those cuts would mean. Would it be in housing? Would it be in one of the benefit sections? Would it be in the street wardens? Would it be in some part of highways, transport, education? Where was the impact going to come? And of that we don't know. Now, ironically, the Deputy Leader of Labour, who traditionally is the one that moves the budget motion, George Duggins, talked about not wielding an indiscriminate red pen. Used that phrase in anticipation of me getting up and saying there should be a resistance against the cuts. And he said, if we had all resist against the government plans, they'll send in commissioners who will run this city, and with an indiscriminate red pen, they'll just cut and cancel things. Apart from the fact they've not told us a single detail of where the cuts are, the people of Coventry, like children, the bogeyman will get you. That's the only level at which the argument now in the council exists. No serious argument. There is a serious argument to be had. And I'll come on to it in a minute about how you can resist in the short term and the long term the cuts. And there are people, officers on a national level, producing papers, some of which I've got, that do look into those arguments. When it gets to the council, it is the bogeyman will get you, the commissioners will come in. So it isn't like in the past a detailed budget where I can get and actually tell you what's going to happen. In the same way as last year, I couldn't predict that they would decide that the boiler repairs, apparently in Fosal, are too expensive, that they have to close the leisure centre down and use money if they have any elsewhere. In the same way, we couldn't have said a year ago that the Sure Start centres would be reducing the amount of care that young children can have, or the children's centres at home would face 6 closures, or any of the things that we've seen happen during the year, because they're not prepared to admit before the May elections what the detail of service cuts are. These things start to appear in June onwards, when they hope, this is the controlling Labour group, they've got past the elections and they're going to have to worry for another 12 months of people actually taking any electoral revenge on them for the decisions that have been taken in private. The only single figure for any jobs in that report is in adult meals, home service delivery, where there are currently 30 people employed for transporting the meals and so on, and they're talking about changing that scheme, and therefore those 30 jobs may be affected, and some of those people may or may not be eligible for relocation within the council. So out of the 400 or 500 jobs that they want to see go, there's only 30 they're prepared to name. So they voted about knowing the actual impact. We know what the impact is. The cuts already and the ones planned mean there's 1,000 less vacancies for school leavers in this city. There's 1,000 less public sector careers that young people coming out of education could aspire to in this city, contributing to even more of young people facing either unemployment, or if the Tories had their way, stacking shelves in Sainsbury's, Tesco or wherever for free. I do notice, by the way, that Boots today is another big company, because of the pressure of campaigns like Youth Fight for Jobs and their campaigns up and down the country against this workfare scheme. Boots have announced today that they're withdrawing from the government cheap labour scheme following Tesco's yesterday. Now those are left working for the council, they have to pay a price, which again no council was prepared to answer when I put the point of the debate on Tuesday, of a further year's wage freeze.